Jen, welcome to my channel. Today I want to make a video about how I used to think that getting out of my comfort zone meant I had to put myself in uncomfortable situations. And what that looks like is, I know there's, I recently watched actually a video about on a reality show, a girl was commenting about how I need to get myself out of my comfort zone. And the idea was, she needed to rush into a relationship even though it was uncomfortable for her, because she was on a time crunch. She's wasting time, she's out of time, and she's trying to find her person. And so she's like, I gotta get out of my comfort zone and go after what I want. And what that meant for her was rushing into uncomfortable situations where she was doing things that were uncomfortable and unsafe, let's be honest. And I think there's a difference where I know that I remember when she said that, it brought me back to times where I know I've done the same thing, where I thought that there's times where I had a friend give me some advice about a similar situation, and how it's almost like you're ignoring your common sense, your logic, your boundaries. Like, no, this makes sense. I do this because it keeps me safe, not comfortable. And so, like, in that situation, what it involved was like giving a chance to a man who she thought, like, I was confused. I'm like, I don't know, he's doing this and this. She's like, no, you should just give him a shot, and you should just, like, yeah, keep up with him, wait on him, and and she's just giving me all this advice, and to me, I'm like, this doesn't make sense. But in the time, for a while, like, I've been single for a while now, right? So I was like, well, I mean, maybe this is why I'm single, and she has access to men, is because she has a different perspective. Like, I know I tend to be what some people would refer to, I would say, prude at times, and serious, and I take certain things too serious. But the reason why I take certain things seriously is because I have been in that situation, or I could put myself in that situation. And while some people tend to laugh certain things off or take things less seriously, like they're ignoring the damaging effects of these activities, like porn, where a lot of, like, this friend didn't think porn was a big deal, and she just lets her, not lets her, but she has no problem with her partners watching it or engaging it in, like, that kind of activity, right? And more casual. And so I'm like, okay, like, I've been told that I'm immature because I have a problem with that content. I just can't handle it because I'm immature, and me personally, I'm very uncomfortable with that, because, like, I'm not walking around naked, and I would expect that of my partner. Like, if I'm not walking around naked and I'm not looking at naked men, then that's the expectation I would have from my partner, because it's not like a have your cake and eat it too. And that's the partners I've all experienced are like that. They want their cake and they want to eat it too. They want to be able to flirt with other women. They want to watch porn. They want to go to strip clubs. They want all this access to the single world, but they want me sitting here, waiting on them for when they come back, like, lonely by myself. So I just thought it was really weird. But I was also not the type to, like, I don't want to go have casual sex. I don't want to put myself out there with random men. I don't want to waste my time when I know I'm not in a place to date right now, because I have some growing I still want to do so I can attract the right person. And so yeah, it's been really, there was a period of time where I'm just like, I'm not getting what I want, so maybe I'm going about it the wrong way, and doubting myself. And I learned that with more clarity, that person was quite a mess, more of a mess than I thought. And I used to look up to her, thinking that she just, like, how can you just not be, I do feel jealous, because I feel like that person is engaging in something that I consider to be private. Like I said, I'm not putting myself out there. And while I have had casual sex in my life, mostly when I was younger, at this age now, I just don't enjoy that, because for me, it's like leading with lust, which means like, I'm actually, I want a long-term partner, but I found, like, when I lead with lust, and when I meet men and they're leading with lust, that always ends up with, like, disappointment. It's like, what you're centering is what you're obsessed with, right? Like, so I had to learn that these men that bring up, sex and conversation quite soon, and want that quite quickly, they're not looking for a relationship. And I used to be like, well, you hear about these people who, they had casual sex, maybe they met at a bar, and, like, they're together 25 years. But for me, I'm like, I also know there's a lot of people that are settled in relationships out of comfort. And I also know there's a lot of people that aren't able to stand and advocate for themselves and what they deserve. And so I had to look at that situation and say, that may be good for them, but it's not good for me. And I had to get more comfortable and confident and speaking up on my behalf, right? Because it got to a point where I was just like, what is going on here? Why do I keep, you know, like the more I settle, the more work, like it's like I'm attracting men that are more work. And I'm doing more, like I'm doing the work. They're not doing the work. I'm looking for a partner, but I'm receiving a child in an adult body. And that's what it felt like, right? So, and so what that looks like for me is like recognizing that I can have boundaries, I can have expectations, and I don't have to settle. And I also looked at, like, when I'm watching these videos, they're all like, I'm out of time, I'm out of time. Like, when you're making a decision based on time instead of what you're receiving. So I'm watching this show. It's like one of those dating reality shows. And they're saying, I actually find them interesting. Like, they're a little bit my guilty pleasure. But I also, I think a lot of them, while they are reality, and there are some very, like, extreme behaviors, I do think a lot of them are based on like what a lot of people in society think or behave or you know, are treated and that. So I think there's a lot of truth to them in certain ways. And so what I realized is like these people are just, they're putting a timeline. They're saying I have to receive, I want to be married in the next 2 years. So it's kind of saying like, okay, so whoever and whatever I meet in the next 2 years, that's it. So whatever I'm left with at the end of 2 years, whoever that person, it's kind of like closing your eyes and like, you know, pointing to a map on like a place on the map and say like, I'm going there. And then realizing on the map, like, I don't even want to go there. Like, that's a warm temperature. I hate warm temperatures. Why would I go there? You know, but like, well, that's what, you know, the universe wants for me. And I think that's a real irresponsible way of living life, because your universe is what you put into it, right? And so depending on what you've removed from what you've learned in childhood and what you've replaced it with, and how long and how often you've done that to a point of what you've ended up with, like a refined product of yourself, that can like vary and depend on what you're going to get. So the less work you put into yourself and the more excuses you give yourself, or delusions based on like spiritual belief systems, maybe religious beliefs, you know, things like that, or like friends and family, society, you know, the norm, like that can really affect your end product, right? And so I had to start recognizing where, no, I'm not selling anymore. And even if that means that, you know, in regards to a person, even if that means I never find a person, that's what I feel good in, because you know what? Like, I just can't settle. I know I can't settle. I've tried a number of times, I'm gonna tell you. And so I know what it feels like when I settle. I get anxious. I start to doubt myself. I start to turn into the person that I'm connecting to, and I favor their activities and their personality over mine. So it's almost like I become them because I center them. And so I realize, like, until I can become fully confident in myself and doing everything for myself that I need as a person, and develop myself and what I want in me, so I can attract that person. So because there's times where I'm like, you know what? If I don't have this within myself, how can I expect it in another person? You know, and then I also thought, I'm never going to find anyone that feels the same way as I do. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that, because I have values and I have morals, and there's things that I'm just not willing to budge on, you know? I want someone who's active in life. I don't care necessarily their body shape, but it's like, I need you to have some muscle tone, because like, I want someone to play badminton with. You know, and it doesn't have to say you have to play that with your partner like all the time. Like, I can go join a badminton club. That's not it. But what I'm trying to get at is there's things that I'm going to want to do with my partner often that are athletic in nature. And the thing is also, it's like just an active lifestyle. Like, I like sports. I like being in the garden, and I like being outside. And, you know, I like playing games, and I like to play. And so I want someone who can be like that. And like, if you're you know, out of shape, whether you're overweight or underweight and just out of shape, you know what I mean? Out of shape, it's not necessarily about a shape for me. It's more about like, how do you show up? Like, how can you show up? Like, I am working on my cardio. You know, it's, you think you're in shape and you're not. Like, I'm not even there yet. I need to work on my cardio. That's why I'm not looking right now. because what I want in another person, I can't showcase in myself quite yet. Right. So, and I also recognize that. So I was like, you know what, I got to keep growing, because I think the longer I cook, the better I get. It's like, I'm like lasagna. Uh, it makes me laugh, because you know when you cook lasagna, but then you put it in the fridge and then you eat it the next day, it tastes even better. That's like because you let it sit, right? That's, anyways. Um, see, I make myself laugh. I don't need someone else to make me laugh. I laugh at myself. But yes, it would be nice, but at the same time, like, I'm just not willing to settle. And knowing I'm going to get what it means to settle, that's why I just can't do it. I can't. I tried. It's unnatural. And so I also, when I was trying to make other people comfortable and I was uncomfortable, I realized like they're really selfish and they didn't care how I thought. And so I thought, the right person is gonna, there's so many people in this world. And I'm like, I can't imagine finding a person that can respect women, you know, and treat women with respect and what that means for me. And not just like some women, I can have a very different idea of what respecting women is with another female, right? Another woman. So it has to fit me and mine. And so um, that's where I'm at. Like I can, we don't have to have the same favorite foods, but we should probably eat similar ways, healthy. And I think that's about compatibility. And before, I think I was just trying to see what I could tolerate. This isn't that bad. I mean, like when I'm tolerating, usually in most cases when I'm tolerating bad behavior, it's become abusive, right? Because it doesn't stop just at that one oopsie or that one time. It's like once you let one time go, they're going to continue and they're going to do it again and do it again. And so I had to recognize like my discomfort was someone else's comfort, and that's not fair. And I had to look at when I was trying to work on myself. Yes, it's important to put yourself out there to push past your levels of fear, right? And that is uncomfortable, but that's different than disrespecting yourself. And so the two, you don't have to become uncomfortable and just respect yourself in order to get what you want. It's not a win situation when you do it like that. And comfortable means you're doing something because you want to put yourself out there and get to a higher elevated place. And while I can see what she was trying to say in the video, where she's like, well, I have to be serious and I have to live with intention, but like you're also not doing that because you're not intentionally asking the questions that you need to know about, and you're just focused on is there chemistry and is there attraction and how much money they make. Like those are really, when you think about it, like those are actually very superficial and like probably the least important things, right? Like I want to know how you react with stress, because that's something I've had to work on. I want to know, do you know how to manage emotions, and you know how to be emotionally aware of other people and be considerate of other people? I don't know how to make money right now on my own, but I know I can learn that, right? And I know part of that is regulating my emotions, becoming emotionally aware, because that's what prevents me from going there. Because when I get stuck in my emotions, I get stuck and I can't move forward. And action is required when you're making money, right? And building yourself. I know I can think of others, and I have to be careful because I can think too far into others. So that's something I have to revise. Putting more time into myself instead of putting it into everyone else. That's what I have to revise. So I also need somebody with boundaries, because if they don't have boundaries with other people, then they're going to be having all these people DMing them and flirting with them, and I'm going to be sitting here like, what gives? Like, you need that much attention from other people? And then there's also the thing is like having boundaries with yourself, not indulging in eating a cheesecake that is meant for 6 to 8 people. Like, why do I do that? I've done that before within 24 hours. And while I didn't gain crazy amounts of weight from that, but that behavior of like overindulging in certain foods because I'm uncomfortable, that's from growth. That's not from, and maybe I could argue, maybe I'm putting myself continually in uncomfortable situations to prove that I'm worthy of, money and success, when in really, I've got an easy path that I just have to put effort into, and I don't have to put myself in these lines of fire as the target. If I just focus on what I have to offer, what's within me in this moment, and focus on that instead of trying to overcomplicate things. For who? For people who don't even want to learn? For people who don't want to heal? you know, I had to catch myself because I feel like there are times when I just get so much in my head because the people that have hurt me were creating a block from like those that I could connect with who actually want to heal. And so that's something I've had to, that's where I get uncomfortable with, oh my God, like I've been working this path and I thought I was going in this direction and I really wasn't. So I think I'm going to end this video. Hopefully that was helpful. And like I said, if you need any clarity, I said this in all my videos, just make a comment if there's something I've touched on that you want to know more about, or maybe even you want to discuss about. You know, this is just my perspective. This channel is just based on my experiences, what I found helpful, and what I also found to be not helpful. And I'm trying to articulate the best I can, but like I said, I do still struggle from trauma brain, and so when I miss out words and when I miss out sentences, it's not to be intentionally judgmental. I'm just speaking based on what I've experienced the best way I can. So yeah, I mean, the wrong people are going to try to twist my words and make it what it isn't, and the right people will hear my message the way it's meant to be heard. So hopefully this helps, and I will see you in the next one. Take care.